The gardens of Rosewood Manor were illuminated by hundreds of twinkling lights as 50 members of the Sullivan family gathered to celebrate my parents' 25th wedding anniversary. The estate's classical architecture provided the perfect backdrop for what Mom had envisioned as an elegant celebration of enduring love and family success. Round tables draped in champagne-colored linens dotted the manicured lawn, while a string quartet played softly near the rose garden that had given the venue its name. I sat at table 9, carefully positioned between Aunt Patricia and Cousin David, far enough from the head table to avoid drawing attention but close enough to hear every word of the inevitable family assessments. For the past 9 years, I had perfected the art of being invisible at Sullivan family events. While my siblings commanded center stage with stories of their latest achievements, I remained the family enigma who somehow never quite measured up to our established standards of success. "Ladies and gentlemen," my brother Marcus announced from the podium, his voice carrying across the garden with the authority of someone born to lead. At 32, Marcus embodied everything the Sullivan family valued: Harvard Business School graduate, managing director at Goldman Sachs, married to a federal judge, father to twin boys who already attended exclusive preparatory programs despite being only 5 years old. Tonight we celebrate not just 25 years of marriage, but 25 years of building something extraordinary together, Marcus continued, gesturing toward our parents at the head table. Dad transformed Sullivan Enterprises from a small accounting firm into a multi-billion-dollar financial services empire. Mom built her law practice into one of the most respected firms in the region. Together, they created a legacy of excellence that spans 3 generations. The crowd applauded enthusiastically. Dad beamed with pride in his custom tuxedo, while Mom looked radiant in her designer gown. They had indeed built something remarkable. Sullivan Enterprises now managed over $8 billion in client assets, from pension funds to private wealth management, while Mom's law firm handled mergers and acquisitions for Fortune 500 companies. Our family has always believed in traditional values. Marcus gestured grandly toward the gathered relatives. Educational excellence, professional achievement, building generational wealth through proven strategies. These principles have guided us through decades of sustained success. I noticed several family members glancing in my direction, and my stomach tightened as I recognized the setup for what was inevitably coming. Most of our family has embraced these values beautifully, Marcus continued. My sister Catherine just made partner at Morrison & Associates, specializing in corporate law. Cousin Jonathan closed the largest merger in his firm's history last quarter. Cousin Rachel's investment portfolio generated 43% returns last year. The applause grew more pointed and I felt the familiar weight of family expectations pressing down on me. At 29, I was the Sullivan family's great disappointment. The daughter who had turned down guaranteed positions at both Sullivan Enterprises and Mom's law firm to pursue what they generously called that computer hobby. For 9 years I had maintained an elaborate facade. I lived in a converted loft above a coffee shop in the Arts District, drove a 7-year-old Subaru Outback, and wore vintage clothes from thrift stores. When family asked about work, I spoke vaguely about freelance web design and helping small businesses with technology. They assumed I was barely making rent while tinkering with websites that generated little income. The truth was vastly different. I was the founder and CEO of Apex Digital Holdings, a technology investment firm that had quietly revolutionized how traditional industries adopted emerging technologies. We weren't just another tech company, we were the strategic force behind digital transformations at major corporations, the architects of AI implementations that had saved companies billions, and the creators of blockchain systems that were reshaping global finance. But tonight, like every family gathering for the past 9 years, I was just Sophia the disappointment. However, Marcus's tone shifted, becoming more serious. Tonight I think we need to address something that's been concerning our family for years. The conversations at surrounding tables began to quiet as Marcus's speech took on the tone of a family intervention. I could feel 50 pairs of eyes beginning to focus on our section of the garden. We have a family member who has chosen a very different path, Marcus continued, his voice carrying easily across the garden. Someone who has rejected the proven strategies that built our family's success in favor of pursuing what can only be described as an extended adolescence. My heart sank. Marcus was about to turn this anniversary celebration into a public trial of my life choices. Sophia Sullivan, Marcus gestured in my direction, causing heads to turn throughout the garden, had every advantage this family could provide. Summa cum laude from Stanford, advanced degrees in both computer science and business, job offers from Google, Apple, Microsoft, and guaranteed positions at multiple Sullivan family enterprises. I maintained my practiced calm while internally calculating the compound growth rates of my various investment portfolios. It was a meditation technique I'd developed to survive these gatherings without revealing the truth about my actual financial position. Instead, Marcus's voice grew more pointed. She chose to throw it all away to become what can only be described as a freelance computer technician. Living in some cramped apartment above a coffee shop, working on small websites for local businesses, generating no measurable income or impact. Several family members nodded in agreement. Cousin Catherine whispered something to her husband that made him shake his head sympathetically. Uncle Robert raised his wine glass as if toasting Marcus's assessment of my poor choices. The truth is, Marcus continued, his voice now carrying to every corner of the garden, Sophia represents everything that's wrong with her generation. This idea that you can build a meaningful life around hobbies and personal fulfillment instead of responsibility and achievement. The intervention was gaining momentum, and I could see that Marcus was building toward something even more devastating. The string quartet had lowered their volume, and even the catering staff seemed to be listening to the family drama unfolding on the main stage. So I'm going to say what everyone in this family has been thinking for 9 years. Marcus raised his voice to ensure maximum impact. You're embarrassing this family with your failures. You're 30 years old, living like a college student, contributing nothing to society while the rest of us build real businesses and create real value. The words hit the garden like a physical blow. I could see some guests looking uncomfortable with the public nature of Marcus's attack, but most of the Sullivan family members were nodding in agreement. Mom and Dad were staring at me with expressions of profound disappointment, clearly agreeing with Marcus's assessment even if they wouldn't say it so bluntly. Which brings me to my point, Marcus continued. This family has always taken care of its members, but there comes a time when enablement becomes harmful. Sophia needs to face reality and accept that her computer hobby experiment has failed. He turned to address me directly. I'm offering you one final opportunity to join the adult world. Entry-level position at Sullivan Enterprises, $85,000 starting salary, full benefits, and the chance to learn how real business works from the ground up. But this technology fantasy has to end. The garden held its breath, waiting for my response to Marcus's ultimatum. 50 family members, catering staff, and even the string quartet had paused to watch this moment unfold. That's when I calmly pulled out my phone and opened my personal investment portfolio dashboard. The silence deepened as I stood up and walked toward the head table, my phone's screen clearly visible to anyone nearby. The numbers displayed were unmistakable: current net worth, $3,247,852,431. Actually, I said quietly, my voice carrying in the sudden stillness, $3.2 billion in assets. Marcus's wine glass slipped from his trembling hands and shattered against the flagstone patio. The sound seemed to break the spell that had fallen over the garden, but the silence that followed was even more profound. I'm sorry, what did you say? Dad managed to whisper. I turned my phone screen toward the head table, showing the detailed breakdown of my investment portfolio. Real estate holdings, $847 million. Technology equity positions, $1.2 billion. Private company valuations, $956 million. Liquid assets, $244 million. Apex Digital Holdings manages a diversified portfolio of technology investments, I explained calmly. We specialize in identifying emerging technologies and helping traditional industries implement digital transformation strategies. Mom was staring at the phone screen as if it might disappear if she blinked. Sophia, these numbers, this can't be real. I swiped to another screen showing recent transactions. Last quarter, we completed the acquisition of 3 AI startups for a combined $380 million. Our blockchain implementation for major banks generated $127 million in licensing fees. Our cloud migration strategies saved Fortune 500 companies over $2 billion in operational costs. The revelation was creating ripples of shocked whispers throughout the garden. Family members were leaning forward, straining to hear every word of this impossible conversation. Marcus had gone completely pale. But Sophia, you live above a coffee shop, you drive that old car. I live modestly because I believe in reinvesting profits into innovation and research, I replied. The loft above the coffee shop is actually my primary residence because I own the entire building. It houses our development labs, server infrastructure, and research facilities. Uncle Robert found his voice first. Sophia, are you saying you own a technology company worth billions of dollars? I'm saying I built a technology investment firm that identifies and develops emerging technologies before they become mainstream, I corrected. We don't just invest. We actively help companies implement solutions that transform entire industries. I turned back to Marcus, who was still staring at the broken glass at his feet. You mentioned Google and Apple job offers. The truth is, both companies have been trying to acquire Apex Digital Holdings for the past 3 years. We declined their offers because we prefer maintaining our independence. The garden had gone completely quiet now, except for the distant sounds of traffic and the gentle breeze rustling through the rose bushes. 50 people who had just witnessed what they thought was a family intervention had instead seen one of the most dramatic reversals any of them would ever experience. There's something else you should know, I continued, swiping to another section of my portfolio. Apex Digital Holdings has been the silent partner behind several Sullivan family successes over the past 5 years. Dad's face went ashen. What do you mean? When Sullivan Enterprises needed to modernize your client management systems, who do you think designed that technology? When you required advanced encryption for international transactions, who provided those security protocols? When your biggest competitor was gaining market share through superior digital platforms, who developed the technological solutions that helped you maintain your edge? Marcus finally found his voice, though it came out as barely a whisper. The Morrison Technology Solutions contract was a subsidiary of Apex Digital Holdings, I confirmed. We've been helping Sullivan Enterprises stay competitive in an increasingly digital marketplace. Your technological infrastructure, your client portals, your automated trading systems, all developed by my team. Mom was studying the phone screen with her lawyer's attention to detail. Sophia, this portfolio shows investments in over 200 companies. We maintain equity positions in organizations across every major technology sector, I replied. Artificial intelligence, quantum computing, renewable energy, biotechnology, space exploration. Our investment strategy focuses on technologies that will define the next century. The weight of these revelations was settling over the family like a heavy blanket. People who had spent 9 years pitying me were discovering that I had been supporting their success while building a technology empire. But why didn't you tell us? Mom asked, her voice trembling with emotion. Why let us worry about your future? Why let us think you were failing? I looked around the garden at the family members who had spent the evening making me feel inadequate. Because every time I tried to explain emerging technologies or digital transformation, you dismissed it as computer hobbies or playing around with gadgets. You had already decided that success only looked one way, your way. I gathered my phone and purse, preparing to leave this family gathering like I had so many others. But this time the dynamic had fundamentally changed. Tomorrow, I said, addressing the entire garden, I have a company to run, technologies to develop, and innovations to create that will shape how humanity interacts with digital systems for decades to come. If you're interested in learning about what I actually do, about the work we're doing to build the technological foundation for the future, then we can have real conversations. As I walked toward the garden exit, Uncle Robert called out one final question. Sophia, what happens now? I turned back with a genuine smile. Now you know the truth. And if any of you are interested in understanding how technology will transform your industries, how artificial intelligence will reshape your business models, or how quantum computing will revolutionize everything from finance to medicine, then Apex Digital Holdings is always looking for strategic partners who want to build the future instead of just reacting to it. Walking through the rose garden toward my car, I felt a weight lifting from my shoulders that I hadn't even realized I'd been carrying. Tomorrow I would continue the work of building technologies that would change the world, while running a business empire that proved innovation and profitability weren't mutually exclusive. Some embarrassments, it turns out, are just success stories that nobody bothered to understand.